now that we've finished our project, the very last stage is we need to finish off the bind off. Now, to actually maximize I suppose, the beauty or the continuation of the project, we want to have our bind off match with the cast on. If you remember, with the cast on, we did this Italian cast on, which allowed the knit stitches and the purl stitches to flow right up from the cast on, and it was also nice and stretchy, which is perfect with brioche knitting. The cast off or bind off that's going to match best with that is what's known as a tubular bind off. I've heard it described as a few other things. Sometimes it's a type of sewn bind off. You might have heard it as an Italian bind off, or it's also a grafted bind off, and that's probably the closest name, because what you're going to be doing for all intents and purposes is grafting your knit stitches with your purl stitches. Now, if you want to actually do it in a more simplified way, you can in fact slip every second one on, put the purl stitches behind, and then just do a standard graft of one to another. But what I'm going to show you in this one is how to do it while all of them are on the same needle. We're going to go and do our tubular bind off now. What we'll start with is a tail of yarn, because it's a sewn bind off. You usually want one about 4 times the width of the work. If you run into problems, you can always, attach more yarn, perhaps use some kind of a felted join if you've got a yarn that will felt. And then we want to thread a tapestry needle. The first 2 things we're going to do are just for the setup. They won't be repeated, so they're just going to happen once off. In the first stitch, we're going to go purlwise, which would be from the right to the left, as though you were going to purl it. You're going to pull the yarn in through here, just like that. And then the next one, on the next stitch, we're going to go knitwise. Now this is a little odd because we don't want it to pull across, so we're going to go pull in like this between the 2 stitches with the yarn, and then pull it through like that knitwise. Now, nothing else happens for the setup. Those 2 are just our setup stitches. Now we've got a repeating 4 stage steps for the actual bind off. So the first one, we're going to go in knitwise, as in from the left to the right into the first stitch. Pull the yarn through, and then pop that off your needle. Give it a little snug to snug it up. Then we're going to go in purlwise into the second stitch on the needle. Now these are brioche stitches, so remember, you're going to treat the yarn over and the stitch as though it was 1 stitch. So I'm going to go in purlwise like this, and that one stays on the needle. Our third step is purlwise into the first on the needle, and that one is going to pop off. Pop it off and tighten my yarn. You can see things tend to kind of want to loop around, so you'll be fiddling with the yarn to straighten it up to get a nice even tension. That's step 3, and step 4 is knit into the second one on the needle. So again, like before, we're going to bring it through the 2 stitches, trying to not actually hook any yarn here when I do this. Going to bring it 2 between here, so I can go knitwise into this one, the second stitch on the needle. So those are our 4 steps, and we're going to go ahead and repeat those as we work through. So I'll do them again for you here. First step, knitwise with both of the stitches, because it's brioche knitwise, and you pop that off. Pop it off, step 1. Step 2 is purlwise through this one, and that one stay on the needle. Step 3 is purlwise for the first one on the needle and leave it on. You keep wanting to try and even out your yarn, but not pull it too tight, because if you pull it too tight, you won't have the nice flexibility in your work. So step 4 is knitwise through this one, and again we want to bring the needle between the 2 here, and then bring it knitwise into that stitch. There you go. So you're starting to see the beginnings of that tubular bind off, which is going to match the tubular, or I should say the Italian cast on at the start. So just continue on with those stitches. When you get to the end, you're going to have just one stitch, so just complete the part of the stitch that you have and weave in the final tail of yarn the same as you would the standard bind off. And that's all there is to it, to be creating your tubular bind off.